Good morning, Lagos. Thank you for joining us this morning for Freshly Pressed 981 here on Smooth 98.1. I am Ayo Mairo Ese.
And I am Valentine Ohu. Good morning.
Today on Freshly Pressed 981, we have two of our analysts joining us. It's always a pleasure to have Rotus stay back for Freshly Pressed. That's a Business Express.
Yeah, you should all be taxed
Oh,
heavily.
gosh.
All of you in the studio.
No, taxed excessively.
All of you drive SUVs here, all three of you. So Lagos, let's focus on them being taxed heavy. That's why Bola Honey show up, because he didn't want me to talk about him being taxed. Lagos, good morning.
Thank you, Rotus.
Thanks, Rotus. You can find Rotus at Rotan Quote on there. And also we have Devoe. Cool. Good morning, Devoe.
Yeah, so good morning, Lagos. Cool. Budget 2020. Show us the money.
All right. You can find Devoe at Devoe Okorie on Twitter. Find us at Smooth981FM using the hashtag FreshlyPressed981.
Yes, and of course, you can send messages on Twitter, Smooth981FM. Use that hashtag FreshlyPressed981. Send a message to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981 0809 444 0981.
All right, so we have a number of stories to get through, so let's try and get through them really quickly. Devoe, I'll come to you for the first one. Anti-graft war, democracy too slow for my liking, says Buhari. Punch newspaper reports, and it's very instructive to know that they've started and, true to their word, saying that they will be referring to him as Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired. That's what they've done with this report. But aside that, yesterday was the president's 77th birthday, and at a short ceremony where his aides and some members of staff presented a card to him, he compared the current anti-graft war to the one he prosecuted as head of state between 1983 and 1985, saying that this system of democracy is making it a bit slower to fight corruption. What do you have to say about this, Devoe?
Well, first of all, to a man up there in the green chambers in Nassau Villa, we say happy birthday.
77th birthday.
77 is not easy. We wish him the best and many more years as our president. Now back to reality. Okay, so when he
Devoe,
was...
sorry, I cannot miss that, what you just said, and I know you said it on purpose. Did you say we wish him many more years as our president?
Yes.
You only gets four. You only gets four.
That is the wish of the people.
Yeah, he only gets four. Thank
you. He's now 77, and they had a birthday cake cutting ceremony yesterday. And as with every celebrant, he gets to speak and speak his mind. So therefore he did, and he was in a moment of nostalgia where he remembered when he first came into governance, even though that was not democratic, under the military dictator. And then he said when he came in, he first arrested people who were said to have been stealing money, and then they were jailed first, and they had to prove themselves innocent. Obviously, that's a laughing point from a point of someone who was in the military. However, now he is looking at the fact that as a democratic president,
yeah.
that he obviously can't do that again. The laws restrain him, and which is where he's saying that even now that he wants to address that same issue that he addressed, and which was corruption, that he feels that the system, that's democracy, which is meant to hold more people accountable, seems too slow for his liking. But I will follow it. Mr. President, are you sounding off sound bites, or you're missing the days where you had all power as a military dictator? Well, the truth is this, he is there. It's not the first time we've heard him say these things. Even when he first came in 2015 or 2011, he did mention that the legal system was his biggest burden. Now, he did promise also to deliver free and fair credible polls 2023, but Mr. President, the reality check there is there's a dark cloud hanging over you regarding Kogi and Bayelsa elections. Those elections still remain a nightmare to many, and if that is the precedence that has been set in place, if that is his view, because that happened under his watch, if that is his example of what is a free and fair elections, I think Nigerians, we should be tightening our belts to be able to deal with the menace called Nigerian elections. Okay. Also, other highlights at yesterday's celebration was while he was also cutting his cake, he said that he feels very strong at 77, that most people at that age are in crutches. Fortunately, Nigerians prefer to have him as president than to put a more youthful person at the stake. But He also said that people still gossip and say bad things about you despite your efforts, when you've tried your best. Mr. President, it is a democracy. It's the people that will tell you the truth. But, Mr. President, good news, they voted you back in, so you really don't have to worry. And then the elephant also in the room, First Lady, our beautiful Aisha Buhari, was not present. She took off to London for a private visit.
Sorry, what,
Yeah. Say that again. Say it again.
In the room?
Yes.
Yeah, she's been no. Where did she go? Sorry.
She went to London.
Okay.
Even though when they contacted her office, they said she was away on the home front.
Mm-hmm.
But she did call to wish, hey boo, happy 77th birthday. And also missing in the room was the vice president, the amiable Yemi Oshibanjo was not present. And also our good friend, the chief of staff, aka the unknown Prime Minister Abba Kyari. He wasn't present in the room as well.
It's a birthday. Why is that relevant?
Yeah.
Some people don't take it as seriously as some of us do.
I just to point out, in the past 9 months, Nigerians spent $9 billion on travel expenses. Yeah. Foreign trips. It was 4.5 billion in 2018 between January and September.
Double that.
It has doubled. I would love for the central bank that brought out this information to break this down between government officials and private sector people. By the way, Mr. President was also given a car, as you mentioned. That car is also not made in Nigeria. It's a foreign vehicle. Just throwing out some expenses for people to put into perspective. That's all. That's all.
Thank you very much
birthday
for
expenses are
breaking it down.
fully captured.
That's
in the
all
budget.
paid for by taxpayers. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you very much for bringing that out.
Okay.
Move on to our next story. Very worrying situation happening in Surulere. We've had a number of WhatsApp messages coming through, people highlighting the fact that there's violence going on in Surulere. Now, the Lagos Police Command has arrested 75 suspects who were allegedly involved in the supremacy battle between two cult groups at Ijesha, Aguda, Surulere, Lagos. Devoe, again, I'll just come to you for this and ask, you just tell us a bit about what's going on in Surulere and also the efforts by the policemen, most importantly, to arresting the situation.
It was bloody, but the police came in on time. This is no gangster's paradise. Surulere was the former bourgeoisie land in Lagos, although that's not the case today. However, the police came in just while two major cult groups were having a supremacy battle and arrested about 75 of the suspects. And these two cult groups, one came from Ijesha, the other from Aguda. This took place on Sunday at about 11:41 when the distress call came in, and by that time they had vandalized over 22 shops. Now, by the time they got there, already one person was down, which they took, and I think he died at the military hospital. Well, we'll just like to commend our police for the quick reconnaissance. However,
was it quick? Would you consider that as quick?
Well, given the fact that we have to accept the fact that we don't have enough police in the country, we can't keep waking up and expecting them to jump up the way we would have it as in other foreign countries. There are about 350,000 police in Nigeria for over 180 million people. Okay, and about half of them are private police. It's the same issue. So Lagos, that has the largest population, we barely have enough police to take care of matters. If 3 or 4 incidences are taking place at the same time, how many, when the other incidences crop up, which they do, you're not going to see police anymore. But Lagos State has been very supportive of the security forces, and we hope that some way, somehow, that bill on state police is passed so that we can get beyond this mirage of, governors will use them against us and start facing the reality, because this is where governance, many of us travel across the border like Cotonou and even across the shores. Police are just like local governments. They're everywhere, especially in metropolitan cities. Whenever there's an issue, which there will be, you cannot abolish crime, you can only minimize it. They're there to assist. So we would like to encourage our police as always.
Thanks.
I'm wondering though, from the videos I saw, the police was walking around with everybody, the civilians or the cultists or individuals carrying cutlasses. So I'm wondering who was arrested. At what points were the arrests made? I'm just curious.
But that's one thing. I mean, the video could have captured something. Maybe it was before or after it was shot. But
Okay.
just key thing here, Devoe, on your comments about the mirage and former governors. Just for those, the part of the pension for life gratuities that ex-governors get is also security that comes from police. Anybody that wants to, that's driving in Ikoyi right now, if you drive past Bodilon Road, there's a certain house on there. It's a really big house, really expensive house. In front of the house, there's 2 or 3 police cars that are permanently stationed there. Okay, so that's when you think about the lack of police and where they are.
Realize that the house you're talking about, if it's the former governor's house, he's entitled.
But that's the point I'm making.
Pensions,
Exactly. So you don't have enough police already, and you already have state representatives who are getting assignments
it's
for
legal.
life.
It's legal.
Yeah, so that's the point.
But even he's referring to allocation and distribution.
Yeah, it's
even
allocations, exactly.
I think that's a wrong analogy. Because how many of the governors do we have? That's why I gave that first statistics. We have about 350 policemen.
Right.
Half of them nationwide are private orderlies.
350 policemen?
Yes.
Or 350,000?
350,000. About half of them. So you barely have over 100,000 for a whole nation.
Okay, I don't want to extend this thing.
You get the point.
Issue is that there are private security firms that these individuals can hire for themselves, and the state does not need to be spending, even if it's 1 policeman assigned to an ex-governor, that's 1 less policeman that is on the streets to protect
You're
people.
not going to win that battle.
And also for the cults, unemployment is what needs to be addressed to keep these idle folks joining violent gangs. That's another thing we need to do.
You're right. MI from Makoka says, I honestly sympathize with Mr. President and how slowly it seems the wheels of justice grind. However, everything rises and falls on systems. Our system is more punitive than preventive, so it's flawed from the start. Just a reminder that this is 2019, not 1984. Ekuna 77th birthday. Thank you, MI.
Thank you. Bengus says, I totally agree with the president, because since the inception of the democratic dispensation in Nigeria, the politicians and elites have used the so-called rule of law to scam the rest of us. They have all gotten away with a lot of murder, all in the name of the rule of law. Hence, a General Buhari was needed to whip everybody back into line and restore sanity. Thank you very much, Bengus.
Emo from Ikeja says, we are governed by... Oh, boy. No inspiration remarks here. Sharon says that people want to have more years where also people are being jailed and having to prove their innocence. So no difference between the previous administration and this present one. Thank you, Sheo. Let's move on to this next story. Court says that Ganduje can depose emirs. Is reported by the Punch newspaper. There was an application that was filed by a group, a forum. They call themselves the Kano Prominent Citizens Forum. They were backed by about 16 to 19 former lawmakers or individuals, highly placed individuals in the government, to seek that the court restrains the governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, from implementing the State Emirates Council laws of 2019. But the court threw that application out.
It's too much power given to governors. That's the gist of this story. Essentially, he's not able to make those laws. Now, on the other hand, my own view on, I'm sorry I do this in expenses all the time, but all these
numbers, man.
Exactly. So when you think about all these traditional the royal families and so on, these folks also feed off the state. Now, Buckingham Palace also in the UK, they get taxes, they get allocations and so on. So this isn't something that's unique to Nigeria. But the gist here is that it's too much power to our Mr. Ganduje, who, isn't this the individual who was on video accepting? Yeah. So that one didn't go anywhere. Allegedly, but it didn't go anywhere. But essentially, this is too much power concentrated in the governor. But again, you can argue that the governor is the CEO of the state. Yeah. This also, I know, he's had some issues with Mr. Sanusi, Emir Sanusi, forgive me, back up. So this ties into that with how their existing beef has continued. So there you have it.
Question though,
yeah.
Rotus, do you think now? I mean, by this law, it just seems like a no-brainer. But can he, get Sanusi off?
Yeah, he can. This essentially, look, the way these things work out.
This law was just signed 2 weeks ago.
And it's funny how these things pass really quickly when they want stuff to get done, right? So now he can quote unquote deal with Sanusi as he likes, because of what's been going on between two of them. But again, it's too much power concentrated in one's hands.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Rotus. We'll go on to some comments. Prince is saying that Devoe, you must have watched the wrong video. Professor Shibajo led cabinet members to sing happy birthday to General Buhari, or to President Buhari. I think he did this.
General.
That's what the comment said.
That was the punch.
Yeah. But actually, he led the Federal Executive Council meeting, so maybe that's today, maybe last week. I don't know what's here, but he wasn't around from the reports we got. So
Okay.
Yes, from the
But
country report.
Prince, how do you feel about the car he was given, and how do you feel about the First Lady being in London, where how do you feel about that?
How about the governors that receive more?
Exactly. How about that?
Henry Dixon says, come to Lekki and see how Nigerian police has been sold to rich individuals. Some of them are drivers.
That's true.
Cheryl says, I didn't say administration. Yes, I corrected you because that's it is. If Ayo Mairo Ese says, it is a good thing that the budget has been signed, but the bigger elephant in the room is implementation. Yinka says, when Ganduje was asked why he's expending too much energy on the issue of releasing powers of the king in the north, aka SLS, he said the people yearn for it. I'd like to know those people yearning for more Emirates when it's obvious they have beef with each other.
All right, Inka, thanks a lot. Devoe, coming back to you. EFCC opposes Kalu's bid for post-conviction bail. Representative of Abia North Senatorial District, Orji Uzo Kalu, yesterday asked the Federal High Court, Lagos, for a post-conviction bail pending the hearing of his appeal. Now, if you recall, he was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment for 7.65 billion naira fraud by Justice Mohammed Idris of the Federal High Court. We actually discussed this during Freshly Pressed last week, I believe. But Devoe, take us through the story.
Well, it's just a point in the life and times of our anti-corruption war. I think the highlights on Kalu's conviction was that, one, he was a major political player. He was actually the chief whip in our current legislator, and he was an ex-governor. Now, with this conviction, the prosecution did say that they opposed it because, yes, it is the right of the accused guaranteed by the Constitution. However, it is not a right available to a convict because the presumption of innocence had crystallized into guilt with the conviction. So what they're simply saying there, that if this was still an ongoing case, okay, and he was detained, he would have that right to bail, which is where some of the other cases we will talk about of people who haven't been convicted, who have been seeking bail and are still under the federal government's detention, have not been getting. However, the judgment has taken place. There is a verdict on ground, and they have pushed against this. Well, we're yet to see what the court's response to this. One of the pundits, that's Professor Ango Abdullahi, we know him as the acting chairman of the Northern Elders Forum, was saying that no sacred cows should be kept in the fight for anti-corruption, that Nigeria is being seen as one of the most corrupt nations, and the anti-graft fight should be accelerated. Well, the truth is this, right? This conviction is just the tip of the iceberg, right? EFCC has over 2,000 accused and allegations against various Nigerians in high places who have looted away or have assisted in the looting of our commonwealth across the past, let's say 16 plus 4, that's past 20 years. Now, what we want is for quick acceleration. You know, Buhari was complaining that it's slow. Why is it slow, President Buhari? Why is it slow? I mean, there is executive will available to expedite those cases. Remember the case of the pensions.
Yep.
People hailed the Zamfara state government because that was the assembly. It was done on the account of politics, meaning they wanted to really cap this man's influence, the ex-governor's influence on the state and all the benefits that he got. So they reversed it. It was not done in the interest of the people, although they claimed it. Hence the Lagos position, where the legislature said nope, they're not doing it, and that it was done for a reason. So my point here is this: if legislation is slow, or if the judiciary is slow, Mr. President, take some time out. take some time outs between your CJ. Maybe you might want to consider the split of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice. Accelerate the reforms in the judiciary so we can get these convictions.
All right.
Having one or two, grandstands in the space of 4 years doesn't cut it. We're not going anywhere.
All right. Thanks, Devoe.
Thank you. We have a message here. Say hello, Valentine. This is Taiwo from Surulere. Aguda Ijesha Orile has always been a hotbed of gang clashes and vandalism, and we thank God for social media that's finally brought it to the limelight. I've lived here all my life, so I can attest to it. Problem is, police response is always very slow, and whenever they eventually get here, they just pick up all sorts of random people. Rotus, let's talk about this story from the Punch newspaper. Constituency projects. The representatives are fuming. They've summoned independent corrupt practices and other related offences commission chairman to come before it because they accuse the National Assembly members of committing project duplication fraud.
Hey.
Saying, prove where you got your source, prove the information that you provided, because some of the parts of the report explained, or rather, there was a committee that was set up to, investigate those things. So they tracked records from 2015 to 2018. Tell us what you think of this story. About 424 projects in contention.
Yeah, so I mean, this is what they call taking a little bit off the top. Where you budget for something, you over budget for it, and then the extra you take for yourself. Now, this is what he has alleged based on what was studied. So now they're saying, of course they don't like what he said, and they're saying he should come before them and explain himself. But the key thing here is that this is not something that's coming out of the blue. When it comes, we've been budget padding has something that has been discussed in the past when it comes to delays in budgets. We've accused what was Mr. Kalu? What did he just get sentenced for? I mean, there's a number of transparency issues that we faced in Nigeria over the years, and now this is the latest one. I feel that I do. Funny enough, I do agree with them. He does have to come out and show proof, because if not, he's going to feel the hammer, as they say.
What hammer, though?
If
they say it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
They threatened that they could go to court, so they could take the legal route. So how about taking that? If you think he's wrong, if you think
trust me, the grandstanding.
Hey, well, I mean, yeah, of course.
You don't want to try the ICPC. They have their facts. We all know it. Should we start? They even published an article yesterday.
We're here for this.
Right.
Open up the can of worms. Let's see what you're talking about.
And it's good to see them, coming out and, speaking. We're not waiting until after you've left office to now start mentioning these things, saying these things to the face of the. Whilst you are there, we need more. So, kudos to him. But of course, it's going to be drawn out because, it reminds me of when Sanusi said that the civil service had to be cut in half, and he was summoned for that as well, saying that it was over bloated and so on and so forth. But as far as transparency is a major issue in the country, it expands to so many different businesses. So we'll see how this plays out.
We'll see how it plays out. Yomi on Twitter says Vice President came for the early birthday celebration. If you expect him to come as early as Amosun, then you must think he doesn't have a job to do. What's the big deal if Aisha wasn't around? My wife wasn't around for my birthday. No biggie. Just to let you know. All right, let's move on to our next story.
Let's leave it alone.
Court orders DSS DG AGF to explain Sowore's continued detention. I won't go into details. I'll allow you to do that, Devoe. But just to mention that Sowore was rearrested by DSS operatives at the Federal High Court in Abuja on the 6th of December, which was barely 24 hours after he was released from custody that lasted over 4 months. What's the guarantee that the court is that they're going to listen to the court's order to explain why he's still in detention?
Who's asking that question?
No, that's my question to you.
Wow. Can you ask it again? I want everybody to hear.
I can help her. What's the guarantee that the DSS will?
Nigerians, let's cry all together, because this is a complete loss and faith in our judiciary. If a question meaning there are people who are above the law, what's the guarantee that they will listen?
Because I asked this question.
Rotus, we can all pack up now.
We can't.
No, we can pack up now.
We need to ask this question.
So the DSS will not obey the court.
They can get into court and interrupt the process. So what's to say that they will answer that?
I feel you, and let's go there, okay?
Go there.
Now, whatever happened with the DSS and Sowore, till date, we have not heard an explanation. Okay, so the assault on the judiciary, on the temple of justice, has not been explained. And the governor, not the governor, Mr. President, President Buhari did say through his media aide that they were in line, okay, and that it was within their powers. That is insufficient reason for what took place. Now, the court has asked, remember, they had to apologize to the judge at that point. The Federal High Court has asked both the DSS, the DG, Yusuf Bichi, and the Attorney General, remember the case has been moved to the Attorney General, to explain before the court why, despite granting Sowore bail, that he is still under detention, and which came to an ex parte application filed by Sowore's counsel, Marshal Abubakar. Now, this treasonable felony issue, all the cases that they lodged against him, the court has given a date, that's the December 23rd, for them to produce Sowore and explain to the court what has happened. Now, you see, this issue and why we have made drama about it is time after time, this government has inexplicably told us that there are cases where national security trumps the rule of law. Okay, let me break that down in common man English. Security matter, they pass law. And you see, that's where we fail to understand how. Where does that happen? The president muted it himself in the meeting that he went for. In so many cases, both in the case of all the other prisoners of conscience, El Zakzaki, Daosuki, and some of the other people who are still detained, that there are provisions of time where national security matters trump the rule of law, because they have been usurping the law, the legal process of arrest, detention, of what is legally a right given to all Nigerians, where they claim there's a national security matter. You see, we can't continue like this. And when the president says that, oh, he was constrained, are you really constrained? Because it seems as if in some cases that constraint doesn't hold you anymore, that you act as you like and you explain whenever you feel like. We can't continue like this. We either choose to be a democracy or we go back to whatsoever autocracy, dictatorship, military rule of the people of power.
We can't go. I mean, we are a democratic
well, then we cannot be accepting this. This cannot be tolerated. And that's why I said all Nigerians, we need to cry at the day that you ask the question, will they obey? How can that question be asked? Are there people who are above the law? And let me tell you something. Our children are listening and watching. You see, in one case, you say, no, security issues, national security. In another case, you clamp some people down and say they stole so much. No, it doesn't work that way. At some point, you negate the law, and that means that you will bring in chaos. If you can jail some, why are some still walking free? Right. Where is the equity? Where is the justice?
Preach, Devoe, preach.
Good questions.
Passion.
This might sound like a bit of an answer to your question, because Premium Times reports that court orders the Bureau of Public Enterprises boss imprisoned for disobedience.
Yes, exactly.
So in the report that's in this paper, it said he serially disobeyed a Supreme Court order to answer the case on the ownership controversy of the Aluminium Smelter Company of Nigeria. Your thoughts on this, Rotus?
Yeah, so the smeltering is just a chemical process where you're extracting iron from iron or chemical process. What they do, so with this company, there's been a tussle between an indigenous company called the BFIG Group and a Russian company called, I think it's Rusal. So this company is located in Akwa Ibom State, Ikotabasi in Akwa Ibom State, and they've been fighting over ownership of the company. I believe the BFIG Group won their court case. I believe it was the Supreme Court ruled in their favor 2012, I believe, and since then the BPE has not transferred ownership to them, and so that's why they're now calling for the head to be that's Mr. Oko, to be reprimanded or carried into incarcerated for this. To Devoe's point, the man is still walking free.
But if the Supreme Court has placed this order on him, then he'll be arrested and put in jail for 1 month.
What's today? Today Wednesday.
Yeah,
So it's an immediate order.
A week to Christmas.
Exactly. Let's see whether We'll see whether this will actually be followed through.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rotus. Just as well mentioned from the Guardian newspaper, reps reject 6-year single tenure for president, governors, others.
Oh, of course
Interesting
they do. Yeah.
All right, let's
Of
move
course.
very quickly on for the program this morning. It's been a very enlightening conversation, and a big thanks to our analysts for making it so. Thank you, Devoe at Devoe Okorie on Twitter, and thank you, Rotus. I wrote and code. Please come back again, Rotus. We
Yes,
want
yes.
want to hear more of you.
Everybody feeling better now?
Hang around.
Devoe 2023. What's up?
Because that's a good time to say see you at 8:15 for the locker room.
That was a joke. Oh my goodness. That was poignant, man.
You want